Right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and you're all very welcome to properly grown-up philosophy now, isn't that right? Philosophical theology.
Past the ladybird, are we?
How many of you, incidentally, have done themes in modern philosophy? Okay, so most people have done themes in modern philosophy. Well, you will see that there will be reference made back to topics that you, or people especially, who you've covered in themes, like Immanuel Kant and people like that. David Hume will be mentioned, etc. So it will be no harm having done themes in modern philosophy. Though it is not, of course, a necessary prerequisite for doing philosophical theology. But the more philosophy you've done, the better it is, generally speaking. Okay, so what we'll do today is just introduce you to the course, look at the main structural divisions of the course, talk about tuition, talk about assessment, the kind of stuff you know already in many cases. We mentioned the journal, of course, the ever popular journal. Might mention a few books, things like that. Okay, well, I've met most of you before, as I've certainly corrected most of your stuff before. In case I haven't met anybody here, my name is Ciarán McGlynn, and I will be tutoring you on this particular module. The tuition will, as usual, be comprised of tutorial days, study days, the online forum, and emails. That's the standard mode we have of contacting and being in contact with students. The forum works if you use it. If you post stuff up there, if you engage in dialogue, ask questions or engage in dialogue or address other people's questions. Though everybody seems to take incredible shyness when it comes to the forum. Okay, and people are unwilling to commit comments in public, right? Especially with philosophy. And this happens in other areas as well. I also teach at Open University, and you will find, generally speaking, in very, very large modules where you'll have, hundreds of people attending it, you'll have a few stalwarts who will be the contributors, and the vast majority are watchers. They silently watch and whatever. Okay? We're much smaller than this, thank you, and in our course here, and it only really works if people contribute to it. I will, of course, put up pieces of information by and by of interest, but conversations can only be got going by those who, if they feel the spirit moves them to participate in it. Is there?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Come on in. Grab that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. And there's somebody else there? Yeah, there you are. Okay. And would you mind signing that and asking that lady to sign herself as well? Okay, so just the two people who arrived in just to sign it. Okay, there. Right. Okay, where was I? Yeah, the forums. Emails, if you have any questions to ask me, you don't want to go on the forum and you want to ask me something, email me, and that's fine as well. If anybody wanted to contact me by phone for any particular reason, you can contact the Priory and they will give you my phone number, okay, if you specifically want to speak to me. Okay. Right, so assessment then. Assessment is, as you all know, one assignment, one examination, which focuses the mind wonderfully, and the journal, continuous assessment. There are 4 units, 3 of which have continuous assessment questions, and it's those 3 units that you will be answering, that you will compile your journal from. okay, answering those questions there, okay. The journal is an essential part of the learning exercise, and the journal, as I said to you last year, themes, or those of you who did themes in modern philosophy with me, since the journal came in as a requirement, there has been an improvement of standards, I have found. So it's excellent. Right? It folks you have to answer these questions again. When you've signed that, would you pass it down to the gentleman at the end?
Thank you.
And let him sign it. Okay.
So just to clarify, is it
Units 1, 2 and 3. Is it?
Yeah, so not 4.
No, 4 doesn't have any deposits in. I think on the website it says only units 1, 2 and 3 you have to do, which leads you into the false sense of, oh my God, we're getting away with unit 4. But no, there's no questions in unit 4. So the assignment will, everybody gets their questions at the same time, so it'll be in a week or two, or a couple of weeks, whenever the powers that be decide to put up the assignment questions officially. Okay, they'll be there. The examination will take place in January, I think, yeah? Okay, and that'll be something you can look forward to. Thank you. It cheers up to Christmas, at the New Year afterwards, because you're, after Christmas and all that, and you're feeling a bit let down. And then you realise, I do have something to look forward to. And this examination is coming up, and it'll be marvellous, and you'll all enjoy it. Okay. The way I tend to structure things is that I will devote the first study day and tutorial day primarily towards the topics that will appear on the assignment questions. Okay, there's 4 assignment questions. Study day we're supposed to do it a bit more broader, so I'll probably bring in some other stuff as well. But in there will also be the stuff for the assignment. Okay, and then conversely for study day 2 and tutorial day 2, I will tend to focus on topics which I think would be a good idea for you to concentrate on for the examination. I do not, of course, give out the examination questions. What I do is I cover relevant topics to the examination. Is that okay?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so philosophical theology, 2 volumes. That's our text. Not very long. Maybe a little bit dense in places. But admirably doable, well written, well structured, highly interesting texts. Okay? And this is what you need to know. Everything you need to know about philosophical theology at the moment is in here. Okay? And that will get you through your assignment and through your examination. You will be better, happier and healthier people by going through these with great care and attention. Okay? So that's what you have to read. That's where it all is. And right. Any questions so far? Right, you're all happy. This is suspicious, to put it mildly. Okay.
Are there marks going for the journal?
Yes, 20% is for the journal. So the journal is essential. It's a necessary requirement of the course, and you garner good marks for doing it. And then there's the essay, and then there's the examination. Right, and all that details you'll find on the page for philosophical theology on the Priory website.
And is there a reading list?
We will get to that in a minute, okay? But the short answer is there is a reading list, and they are it.
Oh yeah.
Okay? Whatever else you read, whatever else you look at, okay, that's it. Okay, these ones here. But I'll say a few more words about that anon. Now, last time when we were doing themes of modern philosophy, or those who did themes of modern philosophy with me last semester, I suggested that in doing philosophy, this is not some sort of religion test. Now that goes in spadefuls for philosophical theology, because unlike themes in modern philosophy, we will be concentrating on questions about God and the nature of God and arguments for the existence of God and all this kind of stuff. Okay? This is not a test of your faith. Okay? And whereas the odd person will start quoting catechism at me in themes, there is an overriding temptation to do it in philosophical theology. Nothing drives me as apoplectic as finding somebody quoting catechism or scripture at me. Okay, don't. It's not a good idea. Okay, there will be general unhappiness in the world. At least, but the level of unhappiness will be increased. We are doing philosophy. Okay, that's purely rational argumentation. Okay. We are not taking any scripture as being sacrosanct. There are no sacred cows. Everything is up for debate and discussion. Okay, so anyway, I emphasise that to you because some of the topics we're going to be doing will be a bit challenging. Some you might find maybe a bit unsettling. Okay, good. That's what you're supposed to find. You're doing philosophy. Okay? But it's not an invitation for you to defend your particular faith tradition or whatever that you're coming with. Okay? It's an invitation for you to rationally reflect upon certain, attributes of God or reasons for believing in God or reasons for not believing in God. Okay? But it's all rational argumentation. Have you any questions about that so far? Are you all happy-ish, or do you want to ask any questions or make any comments or share your experiences or put out a flood of tears or anything?
Too soon.
Too soon. Okay, we'll work on it. Okay, right. Okay, so moving on then. So, Unit 1 then deals with some of the old chestnuts of the philosophy of religion. Arguments for the existence of God. And interesting set of arguments they are. There's the cosmological arguments. We have a look at Thomas Aquinas. That'll be his first and third ways in the cosmological arguments. There's William Lane Craig on his argument from the Big Bang. I tend not to ask that as an assignment question or as an examination question because I think the Thomistic stuff, Thomas Aquinas' arguments, are covered better in the text. Okay, so but it's there anyway for you, and certainly read it and do whatever continuous assessment questions there are in relation to that for the journal. And these are the standard kind of arguments about why God exists. Thomas Aquinas, in fact, had 5 ways for proving the existence of God. So he'd say, look, we see motion in the world. There has to be a first mover. We see causal chains in the world. There has to be something that starts the causal chain. Okay? We see gradations, we see necessary and contingent beings. Not every being is a necessary being. There has to be one overriding necessary being that is itself not caused by anything else. Again, or we see gradations of perfection, or we see purpose in the world. That's his 5th way. So these are arguments based on observations about the nature of the world, and can we infer from that the existence of a deity. And some of these arguments will have their origins at least going back into ancient times, into the ancient Greeks. Then there is what could either be seen as a separate set of arguments or a subset of cosmological arguments. And these are the arguments from design, the design arguments. Now, the cosmological arguments, especially Thomas Aquinas' ones, tend not to have much purchase today. Most people wouldn't understand the first way or the second way, or the third way, and not have a breeze about the fourth way. It's just incomprehensible. And why? Because he's speaking in a different idiom. He's speaking in an idiom of Aristotelian and Platonic metaphysics. And nobody speaks in that idiom except philosophers today. Okay? Not that it's a wrong idiom, it's not that it's incorrect, it's just one that requires a certain amount of specialised knowledge. For example, Aristotelian terminology. Right? However, his fifth way, which although is couched in an Aristotelian terminology about telos, okay, purpose in the world, that is the precursor to a much more robust and contemporary set of arguments for the existence of God, which are known as the design arguments. We have the classic statements of the design argument, which is done by Paley in the late 18th century. He was working. He was an Anglican clergyman in Carlisle, and he wrote his argument, which was a very persuasive argument up until about 1859. And after 1859, it became a much less persuasive argument. Richard Dawkins, a man who's often been mentioned in these discussions, who was a militant and ardent atheist. I think he's got a new book out now about precisely what he's been interviewed on BBC the other night. And I said, oh my God, I must mention his book. I now have forgotten the name of his book. But it's his most recent book, and it's...
Beginner's Guide to Not Believing in God.
Well, that's, I say, the subtitle. That's probably the subtitle or something of it, okay? But it's basically, the whole God story and stuff has ran its course, and, we're better off we just gave up on it and whatever, okay? He, the Bell Richard, once said that if he had lived before 1859, he would have found Paley's design argument for the existence of God, irrefutable. Okay. So what happened in 1859? A crucial year in the Western intellectual tradition. It was the year that Darwin published his On the Origin of Species, an outstanding book, a book which the American philosopher Daniel Dennett described as the best, the ideas in it, as the best idea anybody has ever had. Okay, so a very, very significant work. Okay. After Darwin and criticisms by David Hume earlier on, Paley's version of design argument is a bit more problematic. So there's been, in biology, in evolutionary biology, you have the notion of the Red Queen. The Red Queen effect. Have you heard that? This constant struggle between species. So a predator will develop a new way of catching its prey. Its prey will develop a new way of evading the predator. The predator develops a new way of countering that evasion mechanism. The prey then, and it's called the Red Queen effect, and it's seen as one of the key driving forces in evolution. Same thing happens in ideas, in the battles of ideas. So you had this brilliant argument for the existence of God on the basis of design put forward by Paley, and then that was criticised. So the design argument didn't go away. Proponents respond in a different way, and you get an update. So you get this kind of evolutionary battle going on in ideas. Okay, so people like Swinburne, Richard Swinburne, now in the 20th and 21st century, would have an updated version of the design argument, and no doubt in the decades ahead, other people will come up with views on other ways of representing the design argument. Okay, so they're pretty standard arguments for the existence of God. Then comes Anselm's ontological argument. Now, Anselm's ontological argument is a philosopher's argument. very few people who have hitherto been uncorrupted by philosophy have ever heard of the ontological argument. And if they ever heard of it, they didn't understand it. You will not be amongst that number. You will read it, you will understand it, you may even have the joyous opportunity to write an exam question on it. Okay? You will be able to baffle your friends. No, impress your friends, baffle your enemies, okay? You will destroy dinner parties by explaining the ontological argument, okay? And you will become deeply unpopular and renowned in your neighbourhood. So the ontological argument is really good because you read it and nobody believes it. You know, there is yet to be a person, well, I've certainly never met a person who said, I didn't believe in God until I read the ontological argument, and no, it doesn't happen. Okay. But you read it and you say, there's something deeply wrong with that argument. Who the heck could believe that? But saying exactly what's wrong with it, that's the problem. That's why it's entertaining, because you come away with it thinking, nah, don't like that argument, doesn't work. Why exactly it doesn't work? And that's the interesting one. So that's what we'll have a look at that. So that's Unit 1. That's not Unit 1, there's another part coming in here, but that's the first, or the main bulk of Unit 1 on those arguments. For the existence of God. And then we have the problem of evil. And the problem of evil actually is often tied in with the design argument. Why do you think the problem of evil might be connected with the argument from design, the argument for God's existence based on apparent design in the world? Why do you think the problem of evil might... Sorry, who's speaking?
God was good, there's no evil.
Say it again louder.
God's just good, evil shouldn't exist.
Yeah, but why is it conjoined with design? Why is it seen as sort of a thing that follows on from design?
It starts somewhere.
Yeah, why design?
Because God is creator. Because God is the creator of all things, and in that then there is a manifest assumption that he created evil.
Yeah, okay, right. So if you...
Is a poor design in the first place?
Poor design in the first place. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Poor design in the first place, okay? So if you buy a car, okay, you know, and it nearly electrocutes you or goes on fire or acts in other ways contrary to your health, okay, who are you going to blame for this? Ultimately, it'll be sent back to the factory, won't it? You know, do better. Poor design. Okay? And the problem of evil is often conjoined with or seen as in some way connected with design because it seems to be in the nature of things that the design is poor. You know, you have things like an appendix which can kill you without warning. You have hearts which stop. You have all sorts of interesting little things that befall you. And you have a whole lot of fascinating things which are not so little. The problem of evil is a major problem. It is one of the motivating factors behind active non-belief in God. Many will argue that in the light of the incredible prevalence of natural evil, the incredible prevalence of natural evil, that there cannot be a God. Or if there is a God, it certainly isn't a God to whom we could attribute benevolence, being all-loving, being omnibenevolent. Okay? So it is a major problem, and it is one that theists have to confront and address. That's why it's in every philosophical theology course or philosophy of religion course you will do. The problem of evil is a key component in all that. And when we do it, it seems to be one of these questions which, you know, really excites people's interest. So I'll be putting the question on the assignment, for example, and so many people will do it because it's you have to lay it to rest. It's one of these things that you're not going to answer. So that'll be a very interesting topic, and it's one that we can't really pussyfoot around. It's a serious, serious issue. There's a very good reason why people will cite this as a reason for not believing in God. So that's the problem of evil. And we'll see the various attempts. And the various attempts to address the problem of evil has been traditionally referred to as theodicies. Okay? The theodicies. So Leibniz had a go at it, and others, well, as we would see, have had a go at it. Suffice it to say, there is definitely no generally agreed refutation of the problem of evil. Okay, but part of it is, I was keeping a check on this to make sure I keep an eye on the time, that we're got plenty of time. Part of the problem of evil is that it's not just moral evil. We can all understand moral evil. There are just people in this world who you might want to describe as evil, who do nasty things. I think probably Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler and certainly other individuals might be designated as evil. Okay? That's not really a problem. It is a bit of a problem. But we can understand why such evil might exist. We might want to explain it in terms of people's backgrounds or mistaken beliefs or whatever you're having yourself as regards an explanation for why people do it. That's not the problem. The main problem is what's known as natural evil. What's natural evil?
Environmental evil?
Yeah, environmental.
Tsunamis and things that blow people away, and that where people lose everything and they lose their lives because of what has happened.
Yeah, okay. And then a standard example which we will be using will be the St. Stephen's Day tsunami in 2004, where 250,000 or 300,000 people or more are wiped out in one horrible event. And there are other natural evils though, aren't there? Toothaches. Okay. I think everybody has probably had a toothache at some stage in their life. Yeah. And I think most people will say that it was a very unpleasant event. Okay. It's something we could do without. One of life's minuses. But maybe some evils are good. Maybe your toothache is telling you something. And maybe we need some evils in the world in order to enable us to, pay attention to our oral hygiene or whatever. Okay. So the kind of evil that is particularly problematic is not just natural evil like a toothache, but it's superfluous evil, unnecessary suffering in the world. And that's very, very difficult to explain. Because you can obfuscate terms like evil, but it's very difficult to obfuscate the term suffering. And we all know what suffering means. Okay? For example, the people wiped out in the tsunami suffered incredible. Imagine all that whole-scale suffering and loss for those who survived, etc. So that's what we're going to be primarily interested in. Natural evil, and especially superfluous natural evil. Or I prefer to couch it in terms of suffering rather than in terms of evil. Evil sounds too abstract and too indefinite again, but we all understand the notion of suffering again. And I'm sure we can see in the world many, many cases and instances of suffering which just seems to be surplus to requirements, completely surplus to requirements. So we're going to be tackling the problem of evil. Any questions about that before we move on?
So superfluous evil, you're saying it's not serving a purpose?
Yeah. Not serving a purpose.
Where would you place the sort of evil that follows things like
the disasters brought about by human neglect of the environment, the sort of climate change and all the things, would that be moral or natural, or is it a mixture?
I suppose it could be considered to be a mixture, couldn't it?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a moral evil in terms of people are deliberately doing it. Let us pollute this river or whatever. Again, it's usually done through lack of concern, lack of awareness of it. If you are reared in a society where you don't have respect for the environment, okay, and indeed most of us were reared that way, littering and things like that in our childhood. It's in the last couple of decades, so a few decades, we've become much more aware of the environment and what can happen there. Okay, so you could see it as natural evil in terms of that. Again, by moral evil, it's usually meant deliberate acts of an immoral nature, like exterminating people or having concentration camps or, genocide, things like that, murder, whatever, those type of things.
But polluting, for example, the environment by organisations that know what they're doing.
Well, that would be immoral, wouldn't it?
Yes,
that would be moral evil, wouldn't it? Like if you have done an environmental assessment, impact study, and you realise, listen, we're going to end up polluting this river.
Yeah.
Let's bury this report.
Yes.
And get on with doing it. Now that's moral evil.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you do it out of pure ignorance.
Well, yes.
So that's So in all these areas, there's sort of a grey area around it. Like maybe if you do things out of ignorance, you're still culpable because you're responsible for your own ignorance.
Right.
Others might say, well, no, you're not. You know what I mean? If you're reared in such and such a way and you don't know any better, are you really culpable for your own ignorance? So a grey area there.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
What would be the best philosopher, in your own expert opinion, on just natural evil? What should you say is the number one guide for you?
Well, I'm going to mention a couple of texts later on, okay? But this gives me an opportunity to beat the same drum again. Paul O'Grady's text here is the best philosopher for you on this matter here, okay? Though, I will mention, also, if you looked at the article on the problem of evil in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Catholic Encyclopedia, works like that, you'll get some insight there. Okay, and many of the main philosophers, like Thomas Aquinas and Leibniz and others, have had a stab at solving the problem of evil. So, given the nature of our course and given its high Thomistic content, I would say Thomas Aquinas would be the guy you should spend most time on as regards his approach to evil. Though personally, I don't think it necessarily works, but that's just my own personal view on it. I'd be interested to hear what your view would be on it.
Do you think Leibniz works better than Thomas Aquinas?
No. I have to say the problem of evil is one of these perennial problems.
Oh, really?
Nobody's answered it. Okay, I've never read a philosopher on the problem of evil who I thought, there's a plausible answer. It's just not.
You'll have to wait to see my essay.
I live in hope that there's a reason why it hasn't gone away. It's a major bloody problem. And unlike other arguments, like you can have arguments, as we will see later on, about how plausible, say, are the attributes of God. You know what I mean? Does it make sense to talk about God as eternal or simple or omnipotent or omniscient or good or whatever, okay? And these are all kind of philosophical arguments. Hold on, maybe, this notion of God doesn't really make sense and it doesn't line up with this, and maybe if he's omniscient it can't be human free will. All very, very interesting philosophical problems. The problem of evil, though, tends to be a much more personal thing, You bury somebody because of pancreatic cancer, you start wondering, You know, really, is the world with pancreatic cancer a better place than the world without pancreatic cancer?
Can I just ask you something, because I just noticed you're kind of using evil and suffering interchangeably.
Yes, as I said earlier on, I see them as.
So you
yeah.
do definitely, and is that how you're going to run through
That's
this
how I'm
course?
going to it, yeah.
Okay.
Because evil, talking about evil sounds really abstract. You know, evil, you get all these kind of Mike Myers. Remember Mike Myers in the film?
Halloween.
And Dr. Evil. Remember Dr. Evil? Wasn't that Mike Myers, stoking the cat? And just kind of, evil sounds a bit bland or banal. Suffering, that's much more. Everybody understands what suffering is. And we're talking about superfluous suffering. And that's what evil is all about. It's not anything abstract. It's something that everybody can understand in terms of suffering.
So you think suffering is evil?
Yeah.
See, I'm stuck there now already.
Okay, go on.
Well, I would see that as a very specific take on suffering.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see evil and suffering as...
Okay, well then, that's where in the terminology that we have to get. By evil is meant, as one of the definitions given here, is all life's minuses, okay? So the things that can be suffering or cause dispositions to suffer, okay? So it's been connected with suffering, okay? So you might have, for example, a child reared in horrible deprivation, overcrowded ghetto or shanty town, malnourished, uneducated. That's an evil. The child might be happy. Within that context, there might be love or whatever, okay? But, and this is where you might be able to uncouple in this context suffering and evil. But it still classes an evil in terms of the loss of opportunity to thrive for that child. That child will never command the kind of material wealth that we take for granted in this country or in Western Europe. That child won't have the educational resources or social capital or whatever to thrive as a human being. The child will never, in high probability, ever become a doctor or a lawyer or, Now that's an evil, okay? There mightn't be physical suffering, but there is the loss of opportunity and failure to flourish there, okay? So you're right, evil is broader than suffering, but it's the suffering aspect which is probably occupies most of the bandwidth, and it's the one that I'll concentrate on as it tends to be in the literature, that aspect. But we'll have a lot more to say about that, okay, as we go on. And like I say, it will be one of the assignment questions. So anybody wants to have a good bash at it, they can do that. So that's Unit 1. And some very interesting topics there, as you can see. In Unit 2, we move on to epistemological issues. Now, we are well familiar with the word epistemology. But in case any of us are sitting there after the long summer and the cobwebs have accumulated, who will tell me what is meant by epistemology?
I'll go for it, Pete.
Study of knowledge.
Study of knowledge, okay. And you can break it down into 2 words, can't you?
Theos and logos.
Theos isn't in that word.
Or logos.
Logos, yeah.
Logos.
Logos, Greek word meaning word, account, story, rationale. In the beginning was the logos. We translated as in the beginning was the word, or the beginning was the account, or in the beginning was the rationale. And episteme was the Greek word for knowledge. Remember Plato, hark back all the time to Plato. Plato said, distinguished between episteme and doxa, didn't he? Episteme was true knowledge of the world, and doxa was mere opinion. Yeah. And in this world, what do we have? Episteme or doxa?
Doxa.
Yeah, for Plato. And it's when we have exposure to the forms, we have true knowledge. So he used the Greek word episteme, and epistemology is the logos, the rationale, the account, the study of knowledge. So we have epistemological issues then in relation to God
Bless you.
and belief. Start off with agnosticism. Agnosticism. What is agnosticism?
Someone who doesn't believe in God.
Which is an invitation for somebody else if I pass you to go on. Agnosticism. Are you all agnostic on this matter?
Someone who has no opinion on it, is it?
I think that's indifference.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Lacking knowledge.
Lacking knowledge, yeah, about
Truth. I don't know.
you're getting there. You're the warmest so far. Okay, on this. All right. So don't take the lead from. Sorry, what's your name again?
Mary,
Take Mary's lead. Come on, anybody want to?
please.
They're not taking a stance on God until evidence can be proven, put forward.
Yes,
Until
yeah.
it's there and I can grab it, I don't believe it.
So an agnostic, in the way we're using it, is agnostic about the existence of God. Okay? About in other words, he, she, or it was saying, I'm not making any statement about God. But, incidentally, who coined the phrase agnostic? Have you ever heard of Thomas Henry Huxley? Yeah, you've heard of Huxley, yeah?
Yeah.
And do you want to tell me who
Don't
he is?
know him personally or anything.
Well, he has long since shuffled off this mortal coil. So, who was he? His nickname was Darwin's Bulldog,
Oh, it was,
because Darwin was a very refined and gentle type of soul who came up with this brilliant theory on the origin of species, evolution through natural selection. And the guy who was associated in the public mind of the late 19th century with the promulgation and promotion of this whole theory was Huxley. Okay, and when Huxley read it, his first time read Darwin's theory, he said, "How stupid of me not to have thought of that myself. It's such a brilliant theory." Do you ever get that when you read somebody's idea? You think, how come I didn't think of that? It just it makes sense, and that's it. You didn't.
You didn't.
But having read it and seen the light, in a manner of speaking, he then became the most famous proponent of the theory. In fact, there was a famous debate in the Oxford Union between Huxley and an Anglican bishop called Wilberforce. Not the famous Wilberforce of abolition of slavery fame, but later Wilberforce. And myth or tradition has it that Huxley absolutely annihilated Wilberforce in the debate. Okay, where Wilberforce is supposed to have said to Huxley, "Oh, are you descended from apes on your mother's or your father's side?" Okay. And Huxley said, "Well, I'd sooner be descended from an ape than to misuse my intelligence as you're obviously doing there, And that's, but anyway, that was the tradition had it that way. Maybe the actual event was slightly different.
Did Huxley run with this Darwinian thought? Because purely the scientific side. Was Darwin himself was a religious man?
No, Darwin himself was not a religious man. Darwin, in his autobiography, says he's given up on religion, basically. He was never very religious start, but he was married to a very religious lady, and he had religious relatives, female relatives, and he didn't want to upset them. But he himself had basically given up on religion completely. Probably largely because of a scientific endeavours. Okay? Huxley was more like Richard Dawkins. Huxley was anti-religious. And he coins a phrase, agnostic. Okay, because he said atheists believe there is no God. Theists believe there is a God. So he came up with a phrase, agnostic, to mean, without knowledge on the matter. Okay, and interesting because there was a great classicist in Trinity in the late 19th century called Mahaffey, Professor Mahaffey. Okay? And famously, he got an application. In those days, you had to put on your university application your religion. Okay? And an applicant had written on his application, agnostic. And Mahaffey crosses it out and writes ignoramus instead. And he sends it back to him with a note that in this university we speak Latin, not Greek. Mahaffey is misrepresenting agnostic, and in terms of philosophy, probably Huxley is misrepresenting agnostic, because as we will see in this argument here, in our text here, agnostic in a philosophical sense is the proposition that we cannot, as a matter of principle, have knowledge of certain questions. To answer certain question, for example, the existence of God or the problem of evil. Right? That it's just beyond our ken in principle. Okay? It's just above our intellectual pay grade and we can't go there. Okay, so that's interesting. And then in the text there's a distinction, of course, between crude agnosticism and philosophical agnostics. And so there are various people who have argued for a philosophically agnostic position. In the text it's argued that David Hume is essentially an agnostic. Some people say Hume was an atheist. Okay. In the text Paul argues that he's an agnostic. I personally argue that he's a deist. So we all come down in different ways on this. Okay, and so I'm not looking for the right answer on this. I'm looking for a reasoned argument on this. Kant was an agnostic in ways. You could see him as an agnostic. Remember Kant last year? Those of you who did Kant. Yeah. And what did Kant say? Where was?
I've decanted Kant.
You waited months to get that joke.
No, I didn't. It just came up there.
Yeah, it came there, did it? Okay.
Literally just came up.
I have visions of you coming across it during your studies for the exam. And I got to use this sometime.
Yeah, I tattooed it, just in case I forget it.
Where does Kant draw the bounds of our knowledge? God, I know, it was about 3 months ago. I mean, that was eons ago. Kant, where does Kant draw the bounds of our knowledge?
Is it between what can be naturally known and what cannot be known beyond the natural?
Yes. By naturally known, you mean?
Rationally known, intellectually known.
Yeah.
Scientific.
Yeah.
You go, Mary.
But scientific, there is. What kind of knowledge do we get in the sciences? David Hume emphasises it.
Ontological.
Don't bring in you're making a Heideggerian set distinction there. Okay, we stick to Kant is bad enough. Okay,
Ontological. No.
Don't start throwing words out. Okay, plucking words out of the ether. Okay, what kind of knowledge does the sciences emphasise? The natural sciences emphasise?
Inherent knowledge. Inherent knowledge.
Inherent knowledge. Holy God, no! Because once you're going into your physics lectures in Trinity and saying, I draw upon my inherent knowledge, okay, the guy would fall off the podium, okay, complete and utter. What kind of flaming knowledge do we have in science? Where do we get our knowledge from? It's not.
It's the empirical.
Yeah, I heard
and
what's empirical knowledge?
It's provable, identifiable, evidence measured.
By rational life.
What kind of knowledge is empirical? I waxed
Evident,
lyrical
yeah.
about this in
We're
the
only winding up
springtime.
now. We're only
Okay,
winding up.
what is empirical knowledge?
Come on, PJ.
Knowledge
Say it again.
that can be-
Observation, no.
Yeah, got that.
Sensory.
Knowledge that can be
Sensory
proved.
knowledge.
Sensory.
Isn't that it? No scientist goes in there and says, let's see if by osmosis I can absorb the knowledge. Or inherently, do I look into my own soul for the... No. They go out there and they have empirical, i.e. sensory observation of the world. Okay?
Excuse me, could I ask you if,
Yes.
this is probably silly, but just, I'm wondering if this agnosticism is a sort of a modern form of just skepticism, you know, just the impossibility of knowing.
Agnosticism and skepticism would not necessarily be far apart,
Right,
on the basis that
just not.
skepticism could lead one to an agnostic position. Okay? As a result of one's skeptical cogitations,
Right.
you might say, I think I'm going to go agnosticism, I'm going to do a bit of agnosticism. So there can be linked, but I don't want to conflate the two of them.
Sorry.
Okay, in this. So, I'm in the middle of talking about agnosticism. I ended up very importantly making a point with empiricism. And now I've completely and utterly forgot what the heck I was making this point about. It was Huxley, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it?
Huxley.
Yeah, and you'd gone on to Kant. And I
Kant,
said
that's it.
I said
Excellent.
Kant.
And you said the joke, Kant, okay,
Yeah.
which now you got in a second time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Kant, brilliant.
And you've heard that before anyway.
I've never heard of
Have
it.
you not?
No, that's
Is this original?
Yeah, it is original. Okay,
Oh.
write it down.
Point.
Okay,
That's
tweet
smart.
it or something or whatever
Oh,
people do to
wow.
make things more.
Tell me. No.
So, Kant put the bounds of knowledge, didn't he? What can be rationally known, what can be empirically known. And beyond that was the noumenal world, wasn't it? We live in the phenomenal world, the world of phenomena, the world of sensory observation.
Mm-hmm.
Over and above that, there is maybe, well, there is the noumenal world. Okay? Where would God be located?
Numerous.
Exactly. What can we say about the noumenal world for Kant?
Can't say anything, I think.
We can't say anything.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay?
He thinks it's beyond.
Exactly. It's beyond our ken. Consequently, his position could be seen as agnostic. Right? And then we also have Ludwig. Second name? Wittgenstein, who we all know and love, yes? Remember him?
Wittgenstein.
Why might Wittgenstein be seen as agnostic, as indeed he is here in this text?
The Tractatus, wasn't it?
Go on.
If you can't describe it, or if you can't measure it, you can't talk about it.
Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. Isn't that right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now you could also kind of make extensions to philosophical investigations, but we'll just leave it at Tractatus, okay? Because the notion there, and that inspires the logical positives, some very empirically minded philosophers, okay? That there is stuff that we just cannot talk about. So it's Wittgenstein, you can see a certain similarity with Kant, can't you? Where Kant wants to draw the bounds of our knowledge at senses, Wittgenstein is drawing the bounds of our knowledge at what can be said.
Or the inner circle or something like that, isn't it?
Well, the Vienna Circle, yeah, he inspires the Vienna Circle. He talked to the members of the Vienna Circle, but he never saw himself as really part of this movement. Okay, so this with Wittgenstein then is the notion that there are certain things, we can't really get to. Okay. Wittgenstein goes on to inspire a contemporary philosopher, a guy called Anthony Kenny. And Anthony Kenny is probably taking his inspiration from the later Wittgenstein philosophical investigations rather than the Tractatus. Okay. And remember the whole notion of a language game?
Yes.
Okay. So Kenny, what he takes from Wittgenstein is that the word God doesn't have any role in any language game, because every attempt to explain God uses material borrowed from a different language game. Okay, And we have a brief discussion of that in our text here. Okay. So agnosticism, interesting notion, okay? When we're interested in agnosticism, we will follow the text here and make a distinction between crude agnosticism and philosophical agnosticism. Okay? And often agnosticism is thrown out as sort of a variation, as Maria's saying there, on skepticism, that, oh, we don't know, we can, well, hang on a second. I'll go along with Mahaffey here. Are you saying that we're all ignoramuses? No. We have a lot of knowledge, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
We have buckets of knowledge. But what we don't seem to have is a way of deciding. Okay? But if you're a true-going philosophical agnostic, you're saying, in principle, you'll never know this. Right? So agnosticism has a lot going for it, and as a witness, Hume, Kant, Wittgenstein. Okay? And maybe it is an honest position to have for philosophers, whatever. Anyway, then we're going to look at scientific challenges to faith. And the scientific challenge to faith is, of course, modern science has worked extremely well, hasn't it? Look what modern science has given us. Satellite communication. Okay. Modern medicines and drugs. Transportation, rapid transportation.
I suppose you could go back to Galileo, could you, or even then?
Galileo?
Yeah, Galileo.
Yeah, of course. And actually the modern science starts in the scientific revolution of the 17th century. That's Descartes, Galileo, Kepler, Newton, people like that. Okay? Very, very important figures, okay? And look at the runaway success that has been in modern science. Okay? And in all of the scientific explanations about from the circulation of blood in 17th century discovered, who was that, Boyle or whatever it was, Harvey, the circulation of blood, yeah. Right up to today, and the work in quantum mechanics and relativity theory and, Big Bang cosmology and the whole shebang. One hypothesis they don't need and have absolutely no use for is the God hypothesis. In any of those debates in science, God is the proverbial fifth wheel on the cart. Surplus to requirements. Okay? No scientist will ever cite God as being, a component. Remember the Far Side cartoon where you see somebody using God and you have all this jumble of figures on one side, and then you have in the middle, and here there was a miracle, and then you have on the right hand side this elegant conclusion. Okay, that doesn't happen. Okay, the reason why that's so funny when you look at it, okay, is because you're trying to bring in God into science, and trying to bring God into science is like trying to introduce, a football into a game of chess or something. It's not part of the way things operate. Okay, and that is the main rival. So it's not a case that, and the reason why it's a rival, it's not a case that the scientific challenge says that faith is wrong. It's saying, look at all the stuff we can do, look at all the explanations we can have, and guess what we don't need as part of that. And probably this challenge, the fact that we have such a successful way of explaining large aspects of the world without recourse to religion, is one of the reasons why religion has declined in the West, especially amongst, frankly, amongst the more educated members of society.
So those who believe you would consider not educated?
No, I'm not saying that. But if you would look at the greatest number of people who will register as agnostics and atheists and things like that, or chances are they're people with degrees. Okay, just statistically, that's the way it works out.
Isn't it about the certainty and the doubt?
Say that again?
Isn't it about the certainty and the doubt? The certainty of scientific discoveries and the doubt about God. So you can't reconcile the two of them in a way.
And it's a case that science seems to offer testable explanations in the way that religion hasn't been able to offer.
It's a different ballpark now, isn't it? You can't. One's studying empirical stuff, one's thinking about.
Okay. So where would religion then? Supposing somebody was to say, well, the reason why I don't have any truck with faith or religion or this kind of stuff is because, I'm a naturalist. Science. I'm set led by science. Okay. How might a theist respond?
Good God.
You can not understand by mere intellect alone, maybe something along those lines.
Say it again, sorry?
You can not understand by mere intellect alone, like the same way as a sparrow would never understand advanced algebra, the same as humans will never be able to really fully comprehend the universe. Maybe something like that is where I go along those lines.
But the person would say, listen, we don't need, the God hypothesis or faith.
On grounds that it's reasonable
What's reasonable?
to believe in God.
It's not unreasonable, okay? But then again, it's not unreasonable to believe in fairies either.
No, but then you get to a certain point of belief where you take the belief of the natural into the belief of the supernatural, and then you examine through revelation, through scripture, through...
Well, then the person who's proposing the scientific viewpoint will say, well, that's explaining one mystery with another. How do you know that scripture actually is what's at issue is there a God, and now you're saying, but these are the works by him. Well, you're saying, well, hang on a second, we don't know if he exists. Okay, so you can't really say this is one of the reasons why in the philosophical theology we don't accept scriptural argument. Sure, you don't, because it's it is begging the question of whether or not there is an author of this. So look, seriously now, come on, sitting here with I suspect more than one or two theists at the table. Okay, how would you respond to
the longevity of the church?
Yeah, okay, well, that means Hinduism wins out, doesn't it? Okay, it beats them all. Okay.
I think you have to keep going back to the beginning and say, well, why is there something rather than nothing?
Bingo. It's not a major question. That is completely beyond the ken of science. Why is there this? Why does all this exist? It seems the more you know about it, the more unreasonable it seems to be that this exists. And that is completely beyond the ken of science. Okay? Why does an ordered, structured reality exist? Why isn't it just an undifferentiated chaos? Why is there this structure? Why are these laws here? Okay? So that's an extremely good question. That's one thing. A theist can come up with a hypothesis which is not irrational as to why this exists. Witness the cosmological arguments we mentioned earlier on. Yeah? Okay, what other things might we find that science cannot explain? One could argue is beyond the ken of science.
Well, I said this last semester, I said again, pain.
Yeah, but pain I would see a specific instance of the thing I'm trying to get at.
Consciousness.
Excellent. Consciousness. Now there's a bloody mystery, isn't it? Okay. Everybody around this table is conscious, yeah? Hope so. Okay, there you were. But that thing isn't conscious, sure it's not. And suppose we had a more complicated version of that, a super duper computer. Something that could answer questions, behave in a way that is a complete mimic of a human being, but even better than a human being. Okay? Think of all these science fiction movies you see with really plausible looking robots and things in it, yeah? No matter how complex the thing is there anybody at home? You've got a computer, you've got a robot there, looks like a human being, acts like a human being, can give all the adequate responses. You can ask it philosophical questions and it'll say, well now actually do you know something, and it'll give you an answer.
But it has no emotional life.
That's what I was going to say.
You might say to it, it has no emotional life, and it says to you, I beg your pardon, that's the most offensive thing anybody has said to me all day.
The ad on
and then it walks out and slams the door. Okay?
Do you know the ad on the television and the fellow says, I shouldn't kiss you, you're not a zombie, but she's she's some kind of something, and she says, no, she's for that very hard. And she said, you know, it's on the television now. It's on the television
I
now.
haven't got a clue what you're talking about, but it seems very entertaining, and I will watch out for it. Okay. Right. But suppose you had a robot like that, as you find in the films. Okay. You know, all these, you know, super duper computers, and it could behave exactly like a human being, talk like a human being, proclaim its emotional state like a human being, burst into tears at the right stimulus. Is it conscious?
No.
It's just a machine. It is absolutely. For conscious, what's the hallmark of consciousness? How would you describe consciousness? Considering everybody here is conscious, everybody now has their consciousness engaged. There's not one person who's fallen asleep yet. So as we're all sitting here...
Doesn't that imply there's a brain behind the mechanism?
A brain?
Well, sorry.
Self-awareness.
There is something.
Aha, now self-awareness.
An individual perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the key thing about consciousness is there's something it is like to be every one of us here, isn't it? There is something it is like to be Ciarán or Maria or Dee or John Patrick. There is something it is like. There is nothing it is like to be a computer, no matter how advanced it is. Hence consciousness. Now, we didn't do the problem of consciousness, though I did allude to it when we were discussing Descartes. Remember that in Themes of Modern Philosophy? And that is probably, if not one of, certainly, well, if not the, certainly one of the key problems of philosophy and science. Okay, what constitutes consciousness? How does consciousness arise? And we haven't got a breeze. Because Fido the dog has consciousness, doesn't it? Everybody agree Fido has consciousness?
Well, they're
Is he
conscious that
self-aware,
we're
yeah?
conscious, isn't that right?
Well, they're not necessarily self-aware, okay? Because, you know, an infant, you know when you stare into an infant's eyes and it's looking back at you?
Vacantly.
Sorry?
Vacantly, is it?
Well, no, if it's a fully functioning infant, it's not, okay? It's looking back at you, you know. Or think of your, okay, I know the kind of thing, can they see anything? Say we take an 8-month-old infant, okay, and you look into its eyes, is there something looking back at you? There's consciousness there, isn't there? But there's not self-awareness. It's not sitting there saying, I'm a bloody infant. I can't wait not to be an infant.
That's
God
right.
Almighty, will they ever feed me? No, there's not that kind of self-awareness going on.
But how do we
But it
know?
is conscious. How do you know?
Because it's language that says I'm a bloody infant, you know.
We have absolutely no reason to believe that there was any kind of verbal self-dialogue going on with somebody who doesn't have language. That's what infant mean, infantia, one who cannot speak. Okay, no.
Okay.
But it's conscious. We've every reason to believe that dogs are conscious. Cats are conscious. Yeah?
They feed.
Rabbits?
All animals then.
Really?
Well,
Cockroaches? Cockroaches?
They act by instinct, really, don't they, rather than consciousness.
Oh, so then they're not conscious. Okay, so not all animals then. Okay. We walk down the road, the two of us, just me and my dog. Yeah? We walk down the road, just the two of us, me and my spider. See, we're pretty sure that dogs share consciousness. They're under the umbrella of consciousness, okay? We're not too certain about spiders or cockroaches or clams. Right? So that's one of the mysteries of consciousness. It's not an all or nothing affair. It's on a slope, it's a gradation. We're conscious, okay? Fido's conscious. Fluffy the cat's conscious, okay? Your goldfish, maybe. Then we start moving down, and we're not. So consciousness is one of these really, really problematic things. And we don't know how it arises, either in the goldfish, Fido, or ourselves, okay? That's one of the areas where there is limitations on scientific explanation, okay? Doesn't necessarily mean that theism can explain it, but it kind of serves to point out that there are places which science, as we currently understand it, cannot go. Okay, and why is there something rather than nothing is certainly one of them. And in that question, theism has a lot to say. Okay, I want to keep an eye on the time so we're not going over. Okay, great time. So then there's the question of faith and reason. Now this in a way is a precursor to the last topic, because this is the Old Testament going back to the Middle Ages, the relationship between faith and reason. Do you need faith if you have reason? If you have a rational understanding of something, do you need faith? Okay, so it's very unlikely I'd say, well, I have faith in the existence of this table. Why would it sound odd for me to say I have faith in the existence of this table?
Because you can feel it.
Yeah, because I've got other reasons for believing in it. I don't need to believe it in faith, do I?
Not really. You have the structure of it.
Exactly.
You know.
What about I have faith in the existence of God? Now that seems to be a different area, doesn't it? But if I could know that God exists, would there be any room for faith? Think of a very famous philosopher, theologian, who would say, in fact, I couldn't, if I have to know God on the basis of knowledge, then I don't have faith. Who would say that? Famous Danish Kierkegaard, wouldn't it be? Yeah. So you'll have fideists, people who will say, belief in God has to be purely a matter of faith. Thomas Aquinas tries to get a middle view called a harmony position. He would say reason and faith as not being in opposition. Okay? And that you need reason to kind of fill out your faith in certain ways. It gives you rational structures and ways to understand. Okay? But there are certain places where reason just can't go. Okay? So things like the Trinity or something, you know what I mean? You accept that in faith or you don't. But it's not something that you can reason out and test without it. Okay? So Thomas Aquinas is going to be very interested in this matter. So faith and reason is very interesting topic. Unit 3 then, we move into the divine attributes. And within philosophical theology, these are particularly interesting because these are claims about the nature of God. God is simple. Okay? His existence is one of pure simplicity. He's eternal rather than temporal. He's omnipotent. What's omnipotent mean? Say it again?
Everywhere.
No.
All over.
Omnipotent.
Ever present.
No.
All knowing.
No. Say it again.
Powerful.
All powerful. Completely and absolutely powerful. That's what God is, omnipotent. Okay? And these, what about omniscient? What's omniscient?
All knowing.
Knowing.
All knowing. Omnibenevolent.
Always
All giving.
wishing.
All which?
Always well wishing or well doing.
All giving.
Doing good.
All good.
Benevolent. Wishing well.
Omnibenevolent. All loving. All good. Yeah? Okay. But if we're going to use these predicates of God, it creates problems. It creates, maybe in the case of omnipotence, what appear to be certain logical problems. Okay? So is God is all powerful, yeah? That's what omnipotence means, again. That seems to be a characteristic of, say, the God of the monotheistic religions. Christianity, Islam, Judaism. We don't want to sort of a powerful God. God is a really powerful God, but he can't do certain things. If he could, he would. Like, for example, there's an awful lot of suffering and evil knocking around the world. He really wants to do something about it, but he can't. Is that the God of Christianity?
No.
No. The God of Christianity, or like the God of monotheisms, the monotheistic religions, is all powerful. It's not that he's just really powerful. Because if you start saying, well, he's just really powerful, not all powerful, you then start sliding into the God of, say, the Greeks, like Zeus. who's very powerful but not completely powerful. Okay, monotheistic religions tend to want to have their God completely powerful. Okay, so if he's completely powerful, can he do everything?
Yeah.
Okay. Can he create a stone so heavy that he cannot lift it?
That's just a play on words, though, isn't it?
No, it's not a play. Well, we're going to argue, is it a play on words? Not. Can he do everything? Yes. Can he build anything? Yes. Can he build anything so heavy he can't lift it? Either way you'll answer it, God's not omnipotent, because if you say yes, well then he can build something that even he can't lift, which means he can't lift it. If you say no, that means he can't make something. Okay. So it might be a play on words, or it might just lead to incoherence. Think if you're having a debate, you know, the kind of long debate you have, or arguments, or whatever. I mean,
That's like saying you can be a married bachelor, isn't it?
can you be a married bachelor? Yeah, well, maybe it's more deeper than that, okay? Because a married bachelor is just a contradiction of terms. Because to be a bachelor means unmarried. So it's like saying to be an unmarried married man. Yeah, makes no sense, okay? But if you are having a debate with somebody and you can point out logical inconsistencies in their use of terms or in their argument, that's pretty much considered to be a very strong point in your favour, isn't it? You know? Like if somebody points out that, I don't know, Brexit's going to be the best thing that ever happened or something, or the worst thing that ever happened, depending on whatever you're having yourself, okay? And if you can point out a sort of a contradiction in those terms, whatever, it's considered to be a point against it. Same thing goes for these attributes of God, okay? There are problems which arise from them. Some might be just merely logical problems, and we might be able to get around them by saying it's just a play on words. Others, you know, omniscience. What's the big problem with God's omniscience? What does omniscience mean?
Oh, no.
So if God knows everything, is it that he knows most things, but some things he doesn't know, or does he know everything?
Free will.
Knows everything.
Sorry, what does he mean? Does omniscience mean he knows most things, or he knows absolutely everything?
Absolutely
Okay.
everything.
So we're not going to surprise him, sure not. Okay, okay. No, God's never going to say, "Oh my God," but he wouldn't say, "Oh me." I never knew they were going to do that.
Oh my.
You know what I mean? Next time around, I'm going to make it better. No, that doesn't happen. Sure doesn't.
Excuse me, isn't there something here about time and eternity? You know, the eternal
That's
God?
the eternal one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's even more problematic. Well, it's
Yeah,
it's a different set of problems.
That's how the omniscience makes sense to me.
Well, actually, that is
It's
interesting
happening.
because these various things are tied in, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
How you come down on eternity will influence how you're going to come down on omniscience and omnipotence. But you were saying the problem down there with omniscience. What is it?
Free will.
Exactly. Whose free will?
Ours.
Ours. Because if God knows everything, he knew that every one of you will be sitting here on this lovely afternoon, instead of out enjoying yourself like proper people, listening to philosophy. You had no choice no matter.
Well, that's a very black and white view of it, because you can be all-knowing of possibilities.
Oh no, it's not a case of God's, well, it's a good chance to be out there now. You know something, I'm not sure about D, you know what I mean? She might decide, no, too nice today. No, he's omniscient. He knows everything. You know, back at the time of the Big Bang, he knew that each one of you will be sitting around this table now. So you have absolutely no free will in the matter.
Yeah, because that's
We may-
assuming that we have accomplished already our existence.
But he knows
we
exactly
are only
what-
in a state of existence.
But he knows exactly what you will accomplish. He
Yeah.
knows.
But it's
He knows. What is
contingent.
it? Here on quoting scripture is
Go for it.
anathema. Okay, but isn't there something about the falling of a sparrow? What's that?
God knows it, yeah.
Yes, even the falling of a sparrow. Okay, he knew the whole shooting shebang. He knows what's in your heart. Okay,
Yeah.
he knows exactly where you're going to be on the 25th of November 2021
I don't
and what you're
know.
going to be doing.
Mm.
You don't know.
No, because it's the thing about free will, and that's always open.
Now isn't that the problem? If we have free will, then the future is not fixed. If he knows everything, including the future, then it is fixed. So we don't have free will.
But there's,
Or if we have free will, he's not omniscient. If he's omniscient, we don't have free will. You see the problem?
possibility of outcome can be known without the determining factors being realised. So what I'm saying is he can know the possibility of all these things. Does that make him less
No.
knowing?
He knows exactly. It's not the possibilities. Like he's not sitting there saying,
But where
okay.
are you getting the exactness?
Because he's all-knowing. He knows exactly what's going to happen. It's not a case of he's sitting there like some sort of a bookmaker working out the probabilities.
But knowing, God knowing, is it he or she? God knowing doesn't necessarily mean that he is interfering.
Or
Oh, it doesn't make it, yeah, but that's neither here nor there.
With
But he
free will.
knows. Nevertheless,
But it's
he
not-
knows.
He
Okay.
hasn't.
So he'll know. He knows now, and he knew forever what you're going to have for breakfast in the morning.
no,
So
no.
what's-
These are
Karen,
things of human design.
What's the
So that means he didn't know it. Go on, yeah. Which he's not
Yeah,
omniscient.
but he
Go on,
understands the
sorry.
possibility.
what's the empirical reasoning for the for free will then? When if you're just a closed circuit of atoms and banging molecules, and you can
So
just-
are you asking,
Yeah.
is there a problem with free will, even in the absence of?
without even the absence of God, if there is God, if you purely on an empirical basis, what's the
There is another problem with free will, even if you're a thoroughgoing materialist,
choices?
okay?
You know what I mean?
Because of Laplace's demon. Okay, do you have to leave?
Yeah.
Cheerio. Bye. French mathematician Laplace, before the notion of that if you had a godlike being, we call him God, evil demon. Okay, now he didn't say God. Okay, that's what we have in mind. Okay, and if that being knew the physical state of the world at any particular moment of time, including the laws governing it, in other words, it had a godlike knowledge, it could not only predict the entire unfolding of the world into the future, it could retrodict the entire past as well.
Say that one again?
It wouldn't only be able to predict
Yeah.
how the physical universe will pan out in the future, it could also retrodict how the past was, every state in the past, okay? Now, leaving aside Laplace's demon, God's in the exact same position, knows everything. But we'll have a lot more to say about that. We're not going to solve it now. In the final section, the one which sadly, Unit 4, there's no self-assessment questions. Okay, in it. Although a question from it will crop up on the exam paper, I know, because I'm omniscient on this matter. There we have extracts from Thomas Aquinas. You know, and you can read all this and things like about God's existence, perceptions, power, our knowledge of God, etc. Again, really good stuff. Difficult, but it's good stuff. Okay, so I urge you to read all that. Some auxiliary texts. Now, look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th text there, okay? Paul O'Grady, Aquinas' Philosophy of Religion. Paul wrote these texts, okay? Paul has written the book on Thomas Aquinas' Philosophy of Religion. So you think it's a no-brainer to say, if you're going to buy a book, which I'm not saying you have to, but I'm really mentioning to buy this. The downside is the book costs about €60, okay, or something like that. Right? So am I saying you need it? No. Am I recommending you buy it? No. I'm saying it's there as a resource, should you wish to. Okay. There's some other ones knocking around the place. As far as I'm concerned, between those and the online encyclopedias like the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, mentioned in the you have more than enough resources. Okay. Some other ones, there's Davies' Introduction to the Philosophy of Religion. That's kind of a standard one. Cover a lot of the topics we're looking at. think this is the 2004 edition. It's been out since the 1990s or something. Chad Meister's Introducing the Philosophy of Religion is a more modern one, 2009. So I mentioned these texts are on here. Some people want to buy text, extra text, great. Whatever you get, whatever you read, make sure you read these, because it's a case of knowing the arguments, not having a pile of books. So have we any, before I bid you all a fond farewell, and have we any questions about anything?
So we're not going into this book at all, are we, for answers and questions?
How in the name of God did you ever get that? In unit, volume 2, there's units 3 and 4.
For the journal, no.
For the journal, you'll be answering questions from unit 3, and you will have to, as part of your course, study unit 4 as well. Okay?
Yeah.
There is nothing here that is not. I want you to get down to the very last word in the glossary at the end of unit 2. Okay? And enjoy the journey. Okay? Have we any other questions?
Why?
Why?
Why am I here?
You're upsetting our faith, Ciarán.
What is the purpose of
What's it all